Hi guys, welcome to my video about teaching long and low and the process that I use to teach my horses. I'll walk you through from the very beginning to starting under saddle teaching long and low. The first part is during a standing position. It's the very beginning. This can be used with any age horse or any type of horse, it doesn't matter. We're going to be working on just giving to pull pressure. You can use positive reinforcement or negative reinforcement to teach this cue. With negative reinforcement, you will apply a slight downward pressure, and as soon as the horse even gives just a tiny bit, you're going to release. That is the reward for following the cue. With positive reinforcement, I simply place my hand in a position. Either it's going to be on the top of the head at the pole behind the ears, or right where the lead rope connects at the bottom of the halter. All I do is place my hand there with a slight pressure, but it's not a continuing pressure. It's more like just enough so they know my hand is there. And as soon as I even see a slight movement, and it's not usually in response to an annoying pressure, but rather they're just moving their head around, wondering what's going on, I click and reward. And gradually that will increase into a more dramatic head drop. You want to focus on making sure that the lowering is out and forward and in a slow and relaxed motion. When you're feeding your rewards or doing scratches or anything, see if you can reward them in a lowered position. That helps encourage that dropped head. With horses that come behind the vertical when you ask them to drop their head, it's really important to make sure that you encourage them to bring their nose out and forward, as you can watch me here do with Cash. He drops his head like I asked, but now that we've been consistent about that, he brings his nose straight back towards his knees, and I actually move my hand forwards, encouraging that nose to go out and in front of the vertical. This may take more time with some horses than others. Next, we're going to add in the concept of using reins, and this would also be the point if you are going to use a bit or a specific bitless bridle, you would add that in. So what I'm asking Cash to do, and my hand is a little bit too far back here, it should have been out more in front, and I'm going to be going downwards with the pressure of the rein, asking his head to follow that. This will be the beginning of teaching long and low under saddle and understanding the idea of the horse reaching out to that contact. You want to make sure the horse doesn't come behind the vertical. If they start dropping behind the vertical like Cash has a tendency to do and we're reworking on, you want to encourage them to move their nose out and forwards like I do right there with my hand, and I reinforce as soon as that nose is out just slightly in front of the vertical. Alright, the next step is flexion, adding in flexion. Usually I go back to just using a halter right here in the beginning so they understand the idea of what I'm looking for and shaping the head movement, and then I will go back to using a bit and reins or a bitless and reins. But what I'm doing is asking the horse to follow the cue downwards, but to flex slightly to the inside. The flexion is not from the nose, is actually from right behind the jaw, and I'm encouraging him to almost rotate that outside jaw away from me and to rotate his whole head slightly inwards. I don't want his nose tipping to the inside and his head being on an angle. You'll be able to see it a little bit more clearly in this next video. So here I've added the reins back in. If you're going to use a bit, then I would do that first step again with a bit and then add the reins in. So what I'm doing is, you can see here a little bit more clearly how her head, I want it to completely and just slightly rotate to the side versus tip the nose. There she's tipping, and then she rotates her jaw outwards, and I click and reinforce. Again, if you're using negative reinforcement, you'll just release the pressure. But I do find that using positive reinforcement is much clearer, especially in training these, because eventually there will be a consistent slight contact, so it might be confusing for the horse. But there you can see she really did tip her nose quite a bit in towards me, and I actually used my hand to kind of pop her jaw out and to straighten the vertical line of her head. Right there you can see it's very much up and down from her ears to her nose. You want to make sure that also they are not tipping their nose backwards towards their chest either. You always want their nose to be out in front of the vertical. Here you'll be able to see a little bit more clearly what I'm talking about is downward forward. So there she came back a little bit, and I pushed her back out and asked for it again, and there she kept her nose out in front of the vertical while still flexing behind the jaw. And also, you need to remember that this is a pretty difficult concept for horses to learn in the beginning, and this will take a lot of time and a lot of patience. But once they get it, it will help tremendously when you start working under saddle. Next, we're going to be adding the in-hand work, but with motion. Now we're going to be putting to the test, so to speak, all of our rein work and pressure work, and asking now for the horse to walk forward while we are giving these cues. So I actually have contact with both reins. I am maintaining a little bit firmer contact with the outside rein as the support rein, and then a give and take more gentle contact with the inside rein. I'm asking for a slight flexion to the inside while asking the horse to continue to move forward. In the beginning, anytime the horse is walking forward and slightly offers a head down, you're going to reinforce that a lot and praise it a lot. And gradually, you'll add duration and quality, and you'll be able to work up to more extended periods. Also, part of this is that in the beginning, the quality of the walk is not my primary focus, but as the horse understands the forward downward motion into the contact, you will start increasing the quality of the walk and working for more movement from behind. After the quality of the walk has started to improve, I also add in lateral work as well and start doing basically anything you would do under saddle, but in hand. So without a rider, but everything is the same. So here you can see the quality of the walk is fairly subpar, but she's stretching really nice and trying really hard for me to reach into that contact and to be nice and soft into my reins, but maintain a nice long and low position. Your body should remain about at the shoulder, and your hands, my hands are a little bit far forward here. They should be back more towards the withers, but it's not so much about where your hands are as much as there's a consistent contact. All right, so the next step is lunging. So this is not a video about teaching your horse to lunge. Your horse should already understand how to lunge, and that's different than just running circles around you. They should have all of their cues down and be able to halt, walk, trot, canter, all of those things. But now we're going to be teaching long and low on the lunge line. So we're going to be asking for more quality of movement while asking for that nice dropped and low head position and moving forward. In the beginning, it's just like with the giving to the pull pressure and for the in-hand work, a slight drop of the head, click and reinforce, or praise, or let your horse rest. Do something and to let your horse know that was exactly what you wanted. As your horse understands more what you're looking for, you'll be able to add duration and quality. You'll be able to extend it to multiple circles of being able to go long and low, and then you'll be able to add in the trot and then eventually the canter again. It's important to remember that with a lot of horses, you're going to be retraining muscles, and so it's not just about training the mind, it's going to be about training the physical part of the horse, and it will take time for them to build that muscle. But you want to make sure that they're always driving from behind and pushing from that hind end forward. You want to see a nice big gait, but not rushing. We don't want fast little steps. We want big, nice, long steps with those back end legs reaching out and underneath, under to the center of mass. In the beginning, there will be a slight loss of quality of movement as you're working on just dropping the head. Like you can see here, she's very sluggish, not moving forward that well, but that's okay. I am asking her right now just to focus on keeping her head down. And as we continue our training, or even during the same session, sometimes we start off the session and they're not warmed up, and as the session goes on, their quality of movement improves. So here we have a little bit better walk, and we also have more duration, or longer duration, of the long and low head down. Her hind legs are reaching up and underneath her body, reaching towards the girth area. We want the back feet or hoof prints to step into the front hoof prints, if not past the front hoof prints. And we've moved on to the trot here, slowly increasing the quality. Here we're not fully tracking up, the back end is not fully engaged and moving forward, yet it's still fairly short strided and back. But as the session went on, or as her training goes on, and you ask for more and more from behind, you'll get more movement from those back end. So here's another way that I teach long and low, which is with a target. This is more exclusive positive reinforcement. And this particular horse is having a hard time understanding lunging, so I've switched over to using a target to teach him to go long and low in a forward motion. So I won't go into detail about teaching targeting, but once your horse understands following a target, you just hold the target down lower and reinforce when they follow it and touch it in a long and low position. Then you'll be able to go for longer periods, work on quality of movement, asking for more from behind while they're following the target. So it'll be the same concept as lunging, but just with following a target. So briefly, I'm going to mention a few training tools that you can use to help jumpstart your lunging work. This is a Shanbond. I'm not exactly sure that's how you pronounce that. And it's a very basic tool. I'll talk more about it on my blog. I'll have details about how to get started using it and when is a good time to use it. It's not for every horse or for every situation, but out of all of the training tools, I find this one has the least potential to create bad habits, such as going behind the vertical. And it also doesn't cause desensitizing to the mouth, which is exactly what we do not want in our horses. With the Shanbond, everything is exactly the same. You will start working on quality of movement and asking for more and more drive from behind. The difference is that the Shanbond kind of does the pressure and release work that we mentioned before, that I showed you before, for you, so you can focus on lunging while your horse is interacting with the training tool. However, it's vital that you do all of the pole release work that we talked about in the beginning of this video before introducing the Shanbond. The next tool that can be used with great caution are side reins. I find these are very helpful for horses that have reached they're reaching the point where they're ready to start carrying a rider, and they're ready to start understanding the concept of soft contact more. But whenever you place reins on them or ask them to reach for that contact, they tend to dive too hard into the contact. And so you need kind of a limit to how far, but you also need to teach consistency into that contact. And that's when I find side reins are really useful. You need to make sure that they're on an extended length, that the horse has free movement of its head, and it's never pulling the horse's head behind the vertical. I'll have a lot more details and information on how to use and how to introduce side reins on my blog article, and if you want to use side reins, please read that first. I do not recommend using it unless you are fully educated in how to use them, and possibly never at all. I only use them in very rare few situations, as they have a great potential to cause more harm than good. So one of the last tools I'll use, and more frequently than the other two, is a wrap behind the hind end. And I'll have more details about this on my blog as well if you're interested. But this is a very harmless tool, and it just encourages the horse to bring its hind end up underneath it. So the last step of long and low is teaching an under saddle. I unfortunately do not have an experienced horse to show you videos of, but I'm going to show you the very beginning, where I am reinforcing anytime the horse reaches into that contact and is pushing from behind by slowly allowing the reins to slip through my fingers and then clicking and reinforcing. But my goal is to always be focusing on pushing the horse from behind, encouraging the horse to step through under its center of balance to right about the girth area, really getting that horse to drive through from behind, because that will encourage that nice deep stretch into the contact. Depending on your horse, you may feel that it might be helpful to add in lateral work fairly soon on. It can help encourage that movement from behind. But if you have a very novice horse that doesn't understand lateral work, you'll wait a little bit and add in the lateral work as they're understanding more consistency into the contact and forward movement. Here in this last example, I'm going to show you a horse or the same horse, but she's pushing more from behind and stretching even deeper into that contact. She is still learning, but from here, with more consistency and more drive from behind, you can start adding in trot work and eventually canter work, lateral work, and then eventually your horse will be strong enough to start developing true collection. Depending on your discipline, you may not want such a strong contact, such as in like Western Pleasure, in which case I would start off with a longer rein and really just focus on pushing from behind and getting that horse to really carry through and stretch into the rein, but not necessarily develop a really strong contact. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope this was helpful for some of you. And for more information, go to my website and my blog, and there will be a lot more details on there.